Well, I'm back in my editor, and this is a brand new project. The only thing I did again is I imported Bootstrap here to get some basic styling, and I set up some columns here. But besides that, that's all I did. And there, I first want to have a look at some built-in directives Vue.js ships with. Now, we already know a lot of them, like v-if, v-for, v-bind. Directives are generally always identified like this. You have a v at the beginning, and then minus, and then the name of the directive. So the v minus part is not part of the directive name. That just tells Vue.js that this is not a normal attribute, a normal HTML attribute it should ignore, but instead that this is a directive it should handle. So the name follows after v dash, and there we could have some, for example, the text directive. That's a built-in one. Text directive takes a string as an input, therefore the single quotation marks between the outer quotation marks, which only mark the JavaScript expression we can now enter there. And here I could output some text. So now after saving this, we should see some text here, even though I didn't enter anything between the opening and closing paragraph tag just by using vtext. I can also duplicate this to use vhtml to output some HTML code. So that is also a string, but now we could use the strong tag and close it, of course, and there we could output some strong text. Now if I save this and go to my app, you see it's bold. Be careful when using this directive, you should sanitize your output to make sure you're not getting a victim of cross-site scripting attacks, because you can output HTML code there, and that of course could also be malicious script tags. So that's something to watch out for. These are built-in directives. Important thing, you identify them by having the v minus at the beginning, not just built-in ones, directives in general. Now let's build our own directives. So here I will simply add a horizontal line and then copy this whole row, because now here I want to set up some custom directives I'll use. Now I'll be able to build a simple custom directive which shows us how to generally use them and which features such a directive has. Let's say I have a paragraph with some text where I say color this, and my goal is to add a directive which gives this some coloring, so some background color, for example. Of course, I could use a simple style for this, like background color and then set the color, but here I want to show how a directive works. And coloring it, highlighting it, is actually a great use case because it shows many of the features a directive offers us, or we can implement in a custom directive, I should say. So how do we create such a directive? Well, we get two options of doing so. The first one is to register it globally. Just like with components, we can use Vue and then the directive like this. Here, the first argument is the selector, the name of the directive, and that is without the v minus thing. So here we could have highlight. This will create a global directive called highlight, which we then use by adding v minus highlight to an element. So v minus is always needed to inform Vue.js that this is a directive. The name then just is the part without the v minus. And then the second argument is the object configuring the directive. Now how do we configure such a directive?